X is given by the universe, you must give 100X back. And then I'm so strongly believing in the US-India bilateral. I believe that there's no other country that the US can partner up in the global south in that part of the world.
Hello and a warm welcome to a very special podcast series, Unusual Suspects. I'm your host, Gaurav Choudhury. This is a series about unraveling stories of entrepreneurs, investors, businesses, professionals, and of course, philanthropists who are disruptors, yet not in your face. The disruptions have consistently delivered on the purpose and the mission they've embarked on. The values are as strong as the mission. Unusual Suspect streams on Earshot.in, Spotify.com, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, Moneycontrol.com, and a host of other podcast streaming platforms and directories. Welcome to Season 5 of Catalyzing Change, The Power of Philanthropy, a podcast series in collaboration with GivingPi, India's first family-focused philanthropy network. 4 seasons in, this series has explored what it means to take philanthropy seriously as a discipline, as a value system, and of course, as an identity. We have heard from people giving at scale and people giving in the shadows. What unites them all, as we have seen, is the commitment. This season, we are looking at a community whose philanthropic story is being written in real time, even as we speak, the Indian diaspora. The Indian Philanthropy Report 2026, the latest flagship offering from Dasra and Bain & Company, tells us that over 34 million people of Indian origin now live outside the country. Their economic integration in their chosen countries of residence is well documented. Indian American median household income has risen to over $150,000, leading to increase in giving intensity. Indian Americans' giving tripled in just 6 years, reaching an estimated $4 to $5 billion in 2024. But what is perhaps more striking than the numbers is what this new data tells us about the nature of that giving. Diaspora givers are moving beyond the check. They're investing their time, their expertise, their networks. They're sitting on advisory boards, co-chairing giving initiatives, building institutions, and they're beginning to ask more sophisticated questions. Where will the giving yield to more systems change? How to design better institutions? That is the question at the heart of this episode. Not just what to fund, but how to think about human well-being in a way that is holistic, giving that doesn't treat a community's education, their physical health, the air they breathe, and the ground they're on as separate problems with separate solutions. My guest today is someone who has built 2 things from scratch that most people would even consider separately extraordinary. A healthcare technology company that became a global leader, and a vast philanthropic initiative that redefines what it means to care for a community. Sunny Gurpreet Singh is the founder of Edifecs, a global health tech company, and Roundglass, a platform for what he calls Wholistic Wellbeing, the idea that lasting health encompasses the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the environmental, and that you cannot meaningfully improve one in isolation without attending to the others. Roundglass Giving, the social impact arm of that vision, encompasses initiatives such as Roundglass Foundation, Roundglass Sports, and Roundglass Sustain, which have together reached more than 2 million lives. Roundglass Sports developed the Punjab Football Club, a team that trains athletes in technique just as much as the fullness of who they are. Roundglass Sustain has become one of India's most serious conservation efforts, working to protect ecosystems that many do not even know are under threat. What makes Sunny's story particularly relevant to this season is that he's a diaspora philanthropist who chose to go deep rather than wide. He chose to plant a flag in a specific geography, Punjab, and asked what it would take to transform well-being there from ground up. Sunny, welcome. Delighted to have you here on the show.
Thank you, Gaurav. Nice to meet you and be delighted to be on your podcast and this conversation.
Sunny, let's start off with a very basic foundational question, which a little personal also. You left India, you built a health tech company in the United States and became a significant success in that world. What made you build a second institution from scratch? What was the motivation? Was there a trigger point? Was there a eureka moment? Was there a wow moment? The premise on which that true well-being sits at the intersection of health, education, and environment. What was that inflection point for you that led you to it? What was that trigger, Sunny?
Yeah, so I had a successful entrepreneurial venture with my first company, Edifecs, which was in the health tech space. And at that point, I've never had too much of a chase in my life or anything. And I'd been there, done that. I had created a successful startup. And then I always told myself that if I ever do anything else after my first company, it has to be revolutionary, it has to be global, and it has to directly impact humanity, which means that it has to be good for us as a collective society and the planet we live on. And at the same time, I was very disenchanted with the healthcare system in the US and globally too, which is pretty much, as far as I see, is unsustainable. We in the US spend north of $4 trillion on our healthcare every year, and only a GDP of half a dozen countries is more than that, so to speak. And so I did a lot of soul searching, and it was not sitting well with me that healthcare had become a business of care versus a system of care. So I said, how do we take care of people? And how do we take care of humanity? And then what came to me was holistic well-being. In hindsight, I was meant to do this because while Edifecs was a pursuit of passion and what I want to do in life as an entrepreneur, Roundglass is a pursuit of love. I can talk to no end about what we do, and it just comes very naturally to me. Everything I did was to get ready for what I'm doing today with Roundglass. So that's a couple of trigger points. When I look at holistic well-being framework, I said, how do we apply that to everything? Number one, including human lives. But also I had this thing that come to me that if X is given by the universe, you must give 100X back. And there's only reason you were given that talent, that experience, and those resources. So then I said, okay, if I have to give back in a proper way, and I'm always a very long-term thinker, I'm a very bold and a big thinker. And that doesn't scare me. I feel that's the only way to do stuff. I said, what am I passionate about? My backyard was burning, I was born in Patiala, grew up in Delhi. And I said, my backyard is burning. The state is not best of being. How can I help my backyard? And so did a lot of soul searching there, a lot of experimentation. And we then gravitated towards, focus on villages in Punjab. Similarly, I cared a lot about India's biodiversity being one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. I have two home countries, US and India. I wear both countries on my sleeve, and I want to do right by both countries. And I said, how can we make Indians proud and not only aware, but proud of and fall in love with the biodiversity? So then Sustain came about. And then I'm so strongly believing in the US-India bilateral. I believe that there's no other country that the US can partner up in the global south in that part of the world that has the gravitas, the gravity, the authenticity, the integrity that India has. And so for me, a US-India bilateral relationship is imperative for a great world order. So I did that. So things that are really passionate, I believe in, that I believe that we can really move the needle and transform, whether it's a relationship or people living in the villages of Punjab, whatever that might be. I embarked upon them and put very long-term 20-year plans for that. And I said, not only will I do it and lead by example, but hopefully I'll inspire and get others excited to join us on the shared journey of making great things happen. And I also believe you have been blessed with a lot. I believe most people are, some more than the others. And you're going to bed happy knowing people are unhappy, then it'll sooner or later impact our state of being. So I don't want to live in a society, I don't want my kids to live in a society where they thrive and increasingly more people are not thriving. I just don't want that world. It's just not, one is not good for the have. Second is I just don't like that world. I believe that everybody in the world should have a level of living, I call it, where they can put food on the table, they have roof over their head, and their kids can get a good education. That is a bare minimum human right as far as I'm concerned. And therefore, it's just not the government's job. It is everybody who's capable of contributing to that equation must do so. So everybody in the world has that bare minimum human rights. And the rest is up to you. Work hard and do whatever you want in life. But we all must work together to give that minimum quality of living to every individual in this world and access to opportunities, which comes through education or otherwise, to the coming generation.
Absolutely, Sunny. You have hit the nail on its head because it's more about opportunities rather than giving handouts. And that is where the two of the biggest barriers, opportunities, of course, in a country like as complex as India, are education and health. So moment we can actually dismantle those barriers, upward mobility will accelerate. The work that you're doing is extremely commendable. That brings me to a specific question on your focus and the lens that you have turned on, which is essentially place-based philanthropy. That is, you have chosen a specific geography to carry out the philanthropic work that you want to do, particularly in education and health. And it's an interesting strategic choice because mostly from the outside that we see philanthropic activities concentrated on a sector-specific focus. However, you have chosen a place-specific approach. And it means you are going for depth over breadth by packing transformation in one geography rather than incremental change across many. You chose Punjab deliberately, I would assume so. What went into that decision and how have you seen its effects play out over time? What is the evidence that has come from the ground so far as your work is concerned in Punjab?
Punjab is a big focus of ours. There's no doubt about that. Our initiatives are 3 region-centric. It's Punjab-centric. So certain initiatives are only being done in Punjab. Some things are being done pan-India, but the headquarters is Punjab. And the third leg is the US-India on the bilateral side. Let me focus on Punjab first. I was in India for 5 years from 2014 to 2019. And that's what kind of sparked the whole curiosity and triggered my desire, my need, my appetite, the love I have for the land I was born in. I'm saying, my backyard is burning, a lot of problems over there. The youth is disenfranchised, lack of investment. It was a deteriorating state. And, I can't fix everything, but something started talking to me. And after a bunch of experimentation of things we could do over there, we focused on the villages of Punjab, 12,500 plus villages, 18 to 20 million people, beset with drug issues, lack of employment, youth disenfranchisement, farmers' plight. I said, this can't be right. And every problem I saw it fixed. The beauty of it was I can fix it. Now, whether it's the arrogance or the confidence or being an entrepreneur mindset, whatever that was, I said I can fix it. And, maybe sometimes ignorance is bliss. But things worked out. Our team did a phenomenal job. I'll give you one small example and I'll come back to the track of the answer. When the first wave of COVID happened, we had, nobody knew what that monster in the beast was. And I was talking to my team on the call. I was in Seattle, of course. And the team said, this is what's happening. People are really suffering. Daily wage workers have come back. They don't have food to eat. I said, okay, well, how can we help? This is Sunny. We need this kind of money. At that point, we were in 400 villages. And he said, we can take care of all the elderly and the daily wage workers. I said, done. Check will go tomorrow. Make it happen. Can you believe it? All our foundation associates, office boys, people in sports, they all came together, social distance themselves, made the packages, which had, lentil and oil and soap and rice and all the good stuff. And that packages that lasted 2 weeks. And they got the transport challans from the government. And they went and they did demographic data gathering in all the 400 villages as to who the people were. We sent the packages every 2 weeks. We fed 50,000 people, 10,000 families for 2 months, and nobody went hungry in our villages. That kind of inspired me to even saying, we got to do a lot more. Coming back to your answer, in Punjab, then when you focused on the villages of Punjab, we started understanding holistically what was the problem in the villages. And we couldn't take just one program because if we took focus on youth, the environment was suffering and Punjab is going to become a desert by 2038. If we don't plant 1 billion trees, or if we only do region farming, then the youth is going to suffer. So we had to take a holistic approach to the villages of Punjab. We developed programs around youth development, which is about immersive learn labs after school and sports centers that they play sports in after the learn labs. And we took environmental programs around 1 billion trees we're going to plant in Punjab by 2035, regenerative farming, solid waste, food waste management from homes. We started working on skilling and livelihood programs for women equity. So we can look at the holistic picture of the village and saying, what do we need to do? And not only that, now we are researching rainwater harvesting, clean energy with solar and biomass. We are looking at chopper cleanups. We're looking yoga to become the starting point. We have already implemented that in hundreds of villages into a health program, which will be well-being centric. So we looked at the holistic well-being of the village from people to women to youth to the environment. So that became, the whole paradigm of holistic well-being of all things in the village became our paradigm. And that made us think very differently about everything. And so today we are in about 3,000 plus villages. We expect to be north of 6,000 villages by the end of the year. Literally half of the villages will be in. We will finish one or more initiatives. We plan to implement between 10 to 12 initiatives, most of them I mentioned right now, by 2035 in all the 12,500 villages. And we want to create 2 million jobs in the villages by 2035. You want 10% of the village population to be employed because of our initiatives. Now, these are insanely audacious goals, never attempted in the world. But we have the audacity, we have the arrogance, we have the confidence, I say, that we are going to make it happen. And so when you don't give up, people find solutions. People saying, hey, we have no plan B. So that's why Punjab came into focus. But when I look at sports has two elements. One is the Punjab element and one is the India element. The Punjab element is how do we make Punjab a powerhouse of sports? And so we took 4 academies, 4 sports, football, field hockey, tennis, and golf. And we created youth academies that focused on the holistic development of the athlete. So our goal is not to produce the best athlete. We say we're going to find the best talent. We're going to focus on them holistically in their growth and nurturing. In the process, we create great athletes, great footballers, great hockey players. So where we are in literally 5 years, and this is astounding, even my jaw drops when I think about it. Today, all 4 of our academies, all 4 sport academies are number 1 youth academies in the country. Not only that, it is almost very, very, very hard and impossible to beat us in 2 consecutive games. We win pretty much every tournament in hockey and football. We just started golf is less than a year old. We have 15 kids who are number 1, number 2, number 3 in the country. Tennis, we have won ungodly 800 plus titles in like 4 plus years, international and national. More than half the Davis Cup team was our academy tennis players. So when I look at how we structured, from the pros to the elite academy, where we have 300 plus elite athletes across the country, we have 25 development centers in football in Punjab. We have 55 development centers in hockey in Punjab. All of this in 5 short years. So if you look at all of the things we have done, it has now purposed the youth to look into sports as a way to build their life and purpose their life and get inspired and get out of bed and say, I can do something. And that's what's happening is kids are now getting out of drugs and coming back and playing sports in our villages. And so instead of saying, I got nothing to do, now kids have something to do. Now the India element comes because our elite academy is scouted all over India. Then we have Punjab-centric teams, and then we have our development grassroots centers and village sports. A complete ecosystem of sports, which is state-centric, so the entire country can know this is how you develop sports in a state, but it has a national mandate. And so, I would like to kind of just throw a small smile on your face, Gaurav, is that our intent is to take India to the World Cup by 2038 in football. And this will be the first time India will get to the World Cup. And imagine a country of 1.6, 1.7 billion people at that time entering the World Cup on pure talent and merit. Well, what does it do to a country, the youth of the country, which is a very young country? It'll energize the country. We plan to get a gold medal in hockey in the 34 World Cup and 36 Olympics, men and women. Now, is it possible we don't achieve the goals? Yeah, it's possible we don't achieve the goals. But by golly, we're not going to leave any stone unturned in making that happen. And we have the confidence that it will happen. And so when you think of those big goals, a lot has to happen across the entire supply chain, to make that goal a reality. And now I want to invite people and say, come join the party, get on this road, let's do it together. The people who have means, intellectual horsepower, ideas. This is not a Sunny Singh show. It's not a Roundglass show. It is an India show. It is a Punjab show. It's a US-India show. So let's share our ideas. Let's share our horsepower and do something for others who are not as fortunate as us. So even though Punjab is a big focus, we have India, like Roundglass Sustain is India-centric. The chronicling the biodiversity of India, habitat, wildlife, human interaction with that habitat, how do you increase the biodiversity of India? This is a national mandate. And we have now become the destination site for India's biodiversity in about 5 years. And these are things that gives me great pride and hope that if I, just with an idea sitting in Seattle, with a phenomenal team sitting in India, we can make this happen. What if there were 100 Sunny Singhs trying to do the same thing? Long-term thinking, big audacious goals, and joining forces. India will be a superpower in no time. Indians will be the most proud people in the world, and deservedly so. And that's the India I want to be.
Absolutely. I like the audacity of hope and ambition. And the first step towards accomplishment in any field, particularly in sports, is the belief system. And that comes from the audacity of hope. And clearly, you've set the goals for India. For instance, Indian team playing in World Cup finals, the main league, is something that every Indian has been hoping for decades now. And if we can go about doing that with your contribution, that's a tremendous achievement. Let me go back to the latest India philanthropy report. This data suggests that 76% diaspora donors still give to historical causes like education and healthcare. Climate action and ecosystem strengthening are growing areas of focus. But having said that, it's growing at a much smaller base. So the base remains significantly smaller, even though it's growing at a very fast clip. So I'm curious about what shaped the decision that giving to a specific cause was not enough. What prompted that approach and attitude, and also the learnings that came from broadening the approach. What worked, what didn't, and what's necessary?
My dad asked me once, Gaurav, that, Sunny, why are you doing all of these things? And I said, I have no clue. Somebody's getting it done through me. And that's truly, I believe that. I have no idea where these ideas are coming from. Why am I so dedicated to this? Why I've given up my life to do this? It's definitely not glory and name, because I couldn't care less about those things. So it couldn't be those factors. So I sometimes think to myself, so much. Why am I so mad about these things? And I believe that if I have to give more of a rational, scientific answer, it is just the connecting of the dots worked for me. And I'm a bit overambitious in what we are trying to do. Definitely, we are doing a lot. I will definitely say so. But the connecting of the dots just happened. So, for example, when we look at our living side of Roundglass, which is our Wholistic Wellbeing app, the app basically shows people how to deal with stress and anxiety, sleep and difficult emotions and those kind of things using Indic practices for meditation, well-being food, well-being music, breath works, yoga. And we give that app free to everybody, because we want to democratize holistic well-being for humanity, for the world. Since you will have an app that will be rich, you can use it, and you can deal with life issues, no matter where in the world you live in, whether you have money, you don't have money, different language support, and so on and so forth. And so that became saying, hey, our goal is that we want everybody to not only be well, but live a life through the lens and the framework of holistic well-being. So we did that. And that's for the world, right? There's no demarcation office for India, for the US. No, we have language support. We have stuff for kids and teens. We have stuff for elite athletes. We have stuff for adults. So it became holistic for all. If I look at the giving side of Roundglass, all our social initiatives, when we entered into sports, for example, I started with a small football academy in Mohali, Chandigarh. Suddenly I said, okay, given my nature of thinking big and thinking whole and thinking deep and thinking long, I said, what do we do? And suddenly that dream of a small football academy in Mohali became, oh my God, we have 4 academies, because it just made sense. It made sense to build the development centers and the grassroots centers underneath that, and put village sports underneath that, and have an elite academy that is pan-India with the best athletes, and focus on them holistically. We give them education, we give them athlete well-being, we give them food and nutrition. So suddenly the programs are making sense in sports, right? And then, there's a one-off something called Roundglass Sustain, but I am just so fond of wildlife. I love forests so much, and India has such richness to it. How can I do justice to what India has and let Indians get behind it? So it's just connecting the dots. One thing leads to the other. And then I saw the plight of Indian Americans, of what's happening in our country in the US. And I said, Indian Americans being one of the most affluent communities in the US, we don't have one voice. So I said, how can I get Indian Americans more involved in nation building in the US? Let's be seen as nation builders, where we solve the problems of this country more than any other community. That's our moral obligation, that we should not have poor people in America. We should not have homeless people in America. I see a problem. If I get very passionate about it and I feel that I can do something and I can rally people around it, I take it on.
Absolutely, Sunny. So one of the most distinctive things about Roundglass's approach is its attention to young people, and specifically to what it means as a young person to thrive, whether it's through sport, nature. Can you briefly walk us through how these pieces actually connect in practice and how they're interdependent, Sunny?
Yes. So I believe that they are what you call pressing problems, and the problems you solve today because they're going to become very big and huge tomorrow. I look at the youth the same way. And this is not an India youth problem, it's a global youth problem. Youth in America is suffering because of social media, the post-COVID environment. It's just a bad environment for our youth, generally speaking globally. And in India, we're a very young country. And if we don't empower and train and create opportunities for our youth, we'll have problems down the road. We are a big country in numbers. We are a young country in age, 27, 28 years old. We have a lot of youth over there, and we need to purpose this youth. And therefore, and I just have always felt that we have to overinvest in our youth, not by saying, okay, you study this and you do that. No, by giving them a framework to thrive, giving them access to opportunities, giving them access to capital. And one of the best ways to do it is sports. One of the best ways to do it is education, but not education where you open up the book and read. So our Learn Labs, for example, are not you open up a book and read. It's immersive learning. We talk about problem solving, communication. One of the most important things that school never teaches you. How do you communicate well? How to solve a problem? How to look at a problem? And not from a myopic lens, but from a lens of how the world really functions and how the world is getting disrupted. That's our Learn Labs. And the Learn Labs Plus model, which will come next, is about the gifted students given even more advanced and more accelerated because they just are so gifted in writing or in science or in math or in artistry or some art or something like that, that we give them more advanced, accelerated environment of learning in their area that they are really predisposed and talented in. So we have a very different way to look at education for our youngsters. Now, I'll give another example, right? I believe in women equity. Why should women be empowered? Young girls are not subservient to young boys. They are equally good and they have qualities the other gender will never have. Why should young girls get married at the age of 16? Why should young girls not have the same access and given the same opportunities that boy has? Why they're not treated equally in society, right? You will have a lopsided society if boys are preferred over girls. So enabling youth by giving them an environment to thrive and make them curious learners, giving them opportunity to play sports, because what sports teaches you, there's nothing in the world that can teach you. And it's not by becoming a professional athlete. It's about teamwork. It's about competitiveness. It's about enhancing your skills, having the physical abilities, opening up your mind and your pores in your mind because you're physically active. Sports in a way is a spiritual awakening. It's a meditative experience because when you play sports, you're so into it that you do not know the world exists. That's meditation for me. So when you do these things for youth and you start connecting the dots by giving them what the next generation world, the next phase of the world is going to look like. And it's not going to look like the traditional world, whether you look at AI, whether you look how our kids are thinking today, how the job market is, how jobs are being done. The world is going to be very different than we grew up in. And so we cannot educate our kids for that. We have to train them to make them future-proof, which is to good critical thinking, curiosity, empathy, compassion, loving the world and the planet you live in, looking at each other in a lens of equality, whether it's boys or girls or whether you have different culture or race, you're north or south or whatever that is. That's what we have to teach our youth. And if we teach that, what a country India will be and what a world we'll live in.
Absolutely. And Sunny, let me end with one of the biggest questions we need to think about as a nation right now. India is aiming to become a developed nation by 2047, Viksit Bharat. And that's not too far away if you come to think of it. What do you think it'll take for us to get there? And where can the diaspora come into play a bigger role in India's development story? Very briefly.
Yeah, so number one, I think we have to be exceptionally bold thinkers. China's done it. China's shown us. They think bold. They have these boxes they want to own. They put 20 years behind it. They put capital behind it. They get people rallied behind it. They win those and they own those boxes. We have to think bold. We have to enable resources, availability of resources, financial, people and talent, and the infrastructure required for this big, bold thinking and execution. That's number two. Number three, when it comes to the diaspora, Indian global diaspora is among the richest, both in quality and quantity. And every Indian American or every global Indian diaspora wears this on their sleeve. They wear India on their sleeve. They want India to do well. Of course, they love the country they live in and they're doing right by that country, but they also love India. Why are we not leveraging the most accomplished global Indian diaspora who's dying to do something for their second home? Why are we not leveraging them? Come one, come all. Tell us what you can do. We'll tell you what we need, how we can work together, and we're going to give you a red carpet treatment when you come here because you are coming half the world away or whatever to help your second home. And we love that. There's things that can be done, but they have to be done in a bold way with great execution and thinking long term. Everything should be 20 years out. We should not think 1 or 2 years. Nothing happens. Big things don't happen that quickly. So those are the things that I would advocate that we have to do today. And people say, okay, where will we get the money? I don't think it's a money issue. There's plenty of money in the world. It's an issue of critical thinking, bold thinking, honest thinking, and working with integrity towards this goal and being held accountable.
Absolutely. It's time to think bold, time to enable availability of resources. And India has an extremely strong, influential diaspora. India is, of course, unstoppable. And you can't stop an idea whose time has come. Thank you so much, Sunny, for your deep insights and perspectives on a range of issues. Thanks for taking the time out and dropping by to have this conversation. with us.
Thank you, Gaurav, for giving me the opportunity. It was lovely talking to you, and thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you.